My biological mother, Anna, had me, 25 male, when she was 22. She was initially thrilled to be a mother, but after I was born, she realized that a baby wouldn't just be a doll to play with and dress up. In the few fuzzy moments I have of her, Anna was never warm or motherly to me. The strongest one I remember is her screaming at me over something I can't remember. Anna would constantly leave me with my grandparents or auntie so she could go out and party. They eventually told Anna that they weren't going to be her full-time daycare and get her act together. A few months later, when I was around 4, she asked my neighbors to watch me for an hour and left. The neighbors called CPS after Anna hadn't returned for days. My auntie eventually adopted me, whom I grew up believing was my biological mother. Of course, I learned the truth as an adult through snooping, but I understand why neither she nor my grandparents told me, as I was already shy as a kid, and they didn't want me to grow up feeling unwanted. Anna had been alive and well for all these years, but never kept in contact. She reached out to me through social media recently, explaining who she was, and asked for us to meet so she could explain everything. According to her social media, she had a husband and 2 little girls and seemed to have a good job. She didn't want me to come to her home because her husband didn't know she had other children. I was upset that she never even visited me, despite being well, but I still met with Anna at a coffee shop she suggested. Anna insisted that I refer to her as Mom, and then immediately started to talk about how proud she was of my success. Although I have a flourishing computer science career and am engaged to a wonderful woman, I consider myself very successful. But her success talk implied that she wanted money or other favors from me. I shut Anna down and told her that I had no interest in a relationship with her. I told her that I had no interest in being used. She abandoned me and was embarrassed by me because she never told her husband and was only worming her way back into my life because she wanted things. She insisted that wasn't what she was trying to do. I told her to accept that I would never care about her and to focus on the 2 kids she didn't abandon. Anna was in tears, but I didn't care and left her crying at a coffee shop. My friend Liv told me I was making assumptions about Anna and how she could have genuinely changed, but I perceived her the wrong way because of my past experiences with her. I admit that was possible, but I don't owe Anna my time anyway. A cousin called me an idiot for telling Anna that I would never care about her because she had still been an immature young person when she had me, and you would never forget hearing that from your child. I think I may be an idiot for how I handled this, so I'm asking here. Not the idiot. If Donna Shellstrop has truly changed, then that means she was always capable of change, but I just wasn't worth changing for. Yeah, she might have changed, but where was she in your life over the years that she had changed? You don't owe her anything. She didn't raise you. You're allowed to feel however you want about her. This is absolutely correct. Also, she didn't change. OP, it sounds like your auntie did a great job raising you. You're successful, and you don't let people who did damage to you waltz back in and take advantage of you. Seems like you have your life pretty well put together. You are absolutely not the idiot for not letting her mess it up. She didn't want you to come over because her new family didn't know about you and also wanted to have a secret relationship with you and wanted you to call her mom. These two don't add up. Essentially, she's trying to be sneaky with her real family because of course she doesn't want them to know her true colors. OP, please abandon this woman the same way she abandoned you. I'll go so far as to say you were pretty generous in the way you treated her. Your mom was 22 when she had you and 26 when she walked out on you. At that age, no one is that immature not to know the consequences of leaving your kid behind and the heartbreak that causes. 21 years passed where she could have reached out to you. 21 years, my dude. You shouldn't feel sorry for what you said, and you don't owe her anything. My husband, 47, and I, 43 female, have been married for 8 months now. His previous wife died less than a year ago, and our marriage was quick, but I fell head over heels for him, and I couldn't be happier. He has 2 children from his previous marriage, nearly adult male and 22 female, and both of them seemed polite and respectful when I met them as a family friend. His previous wife was a great woman and mother, so when I married into this family, I wanted to try my best to fill the role of a mother figure in her place. My eldest stepdaughter, who we'll call SD, was very approving of my marriage with her father and has accepted me into the family with welcoming arms. However, my stepson, who we'll call SS, has been less than courteous. Before my marriage, he and his sister were pleasant and polite. I even enjoyed discussing our shared hobbies with them, such as cooking, but ever since my engagement with their father, his attitude changed drastically. I assumed this was because he was having trouble adjusting to his biological mother's death, and I was willing to give him the time he needed to grieve. But since then, his behavior has only worsened. At the start, he was mostly cold and distant, like he would ignore me when I greeted him, etc. But over time, he's become snappy and disrespectful of my position in the family. My husband has been primarily laissez-faire in the way he's raised him, allowing him to make decisions about where he is and what he's doing, under the condition that he's honest with his whereabouts. SS has always been understanding of the leeway his father has given him, but recently, he's taken advantage of that trust. He goes out late at night with his friends, to the point where he booked a trip to another city for the weekend a few weeks ago without telling us beforehand. My husband and I had to call the police because we couldn't get in contact with him. My husband and I decided to give him a talk, where admittedly, I did most of the talking. I tried my best to be understanding but firm about the fact that he'd crossed a line. When I told him that he couldn't just do what he liked without letting his parents know first, he yelled at me and said, "I don't know who you think you are, but just because you were itching for the chance to take over this family doesn't give you the right to pretend to be my mother," and started to sob. I justifiably got very angry with him and said that his inability to move on a year after his mother's death shouldn't get in the way of my marriage. He told me to screw off and get out of his life before storming out of the house. Since then, SS has refused to talk to me. My husband was devastated about our fight and told me I was responsible and needed to apologize. But SD, on the other hand, thinks he needed a reality check and that I made the right decision in confronting him. So now, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. So did you wait until the body was cold to try and upend this woman's life and family? Or was it still warm? The gall of trying to become a stand-in parent and then having the audacity to punish this boy for not adjusting well to his dad's brand new plaything makes me sick. My money's on she was sleeping with the dad while his first wife was sick, and I doubt the stepdaughter's really okay with how OP and dad have handled this. She just sees the writing on the wall and is not going to cross their new mommy because she's terrified of damaging her relationship with her dad, the only parent she has left. OP and the dad sound like monsters. You are the idiot, especially for referring to his mother as his biological mother. That's, wow, amazingly tone-deaf, incredibly cruel. She's his only mother. You're just some woman who honed in while the body was still warm. You are the idiot, massively. First, you don't get to set a timeline for someone else's grief. He gets to grieve as long as he wants. Telling someone to move on from the death of their mother is unbelievably insensitive. Second, 1 year is an incredibly short amount of time for a kid to lose his mother and gain a stepmother. You have to allow him time to wrap his head around that. It may take years to be okay with that. Finally, given his age, you're not a mother figure for him. You are his dad's wife. Discipline and parenting should be coming from his father, not you. I, female 27, found out I was pregnant very recently. My husband, 34, and his family are beyond happy and excited. From what I heard, my husband was married 2 times before, but couldn't have kids for 10 years. This is obviously a huge deal for his family because his mom will be a first-time grandma with this baby. They threw a celebration dinner for us, and as his mom and I were talking about the baby, she told me about how she had already started making memories and started having keepsakes of her grandbaby. I felt a bit confused and asked if my husband had bought something for the baby and gave it to her. She said no, but he did bring her my used pregnancy test and gave it to her to store as a memory of the news of her grandbaby's existence. I was floored. I looked at my husband like, "Did you really do that?" He nodded while smiling. I felt creeped out, disgusted, and very uncomfortable. After the initial shock, I just went off on the both of them, calling what they did creepy and disgusting, and highly violating. My husband argued that it was not a huge deal. He just grabbed the test once I got rid of it, put it in a plastic bag, and gifted it to his mom as a keepsake. I told him it made me feel violated and creeped out because that test had my literal pee on it. His mom said something about taking care of the smell, and I lashed out even more and demanded they get rid of it, but they kept arguing, calling me controlling. Finally, brother-in-law asked me to calm down, but I decided to just grab my stuff and go home. My husband started arguing about how this was all just an overreaction and said that I ruined his and his family's joy by how I behaved after finding out about the pregnancy test. He said it's all about the baby for him and his mom, but I somehow made this whole thing about me and hurt their feelings in the process. But that was my pregnancy test, and I just couldn't help but flip out, even if it ruined their joy for the news. Did I overreact? Am I the idiot? I think I see why at 34, you're his third wife. Not the idiot, OP. First grandbaby after 10 years plus of waiting. Girl, there's a lot more in store for you. I wish you good luck. We may be seeing you here frequently with boundary-stomping mother-in-law. I'm sorry, what? They said it was about their happiness and the baby, but not about you? The one creating life in your womb? Do you realize it's the first step to never having a say in your own child's life? It's going to be your husband and his wife. Oops, I mean mother. Not the idiot, but reevaluate seriously if you want a baby with this man and want to stay with him. Red flags all around. My first red flag was OP saying, "from what I heard," because while it may just be an innocent phrasing, it's also as if OP didn't hear it from her husband that he had been married before and couldn't have kids. I thought to myself, was this gossip at a party? From a cashier at a grocery store? From his aunt? It seems like something they would have discussed, but the way she says it, it's almost as if she didn't know about his prior marriages and desire for a child. So for them, it's all about the baby, and your husband accuses you of making your pregnancy about you, and you're his third wife because the previous two were infertile? How dare their broodmare have feelings is their attitude. Start laying down hard boundaries now, or soon enough, Mama's boy's husband will throw a tantrum about mother-in-law not having a front row seat and a film crew in the delivery room. Unless that's the kind of life you want, carefully reconsider your situation. I, 28 female, and my husband, 29, have been married for 6 years. And for most of those years, we have been trying to have a baby. However, my infertility issues have brought us to the point of reconsidering and looking into adoption and surrogacy instead, after years of IVF treatments and various other outlooks. Then around 2 weeks ago, a miracle occurred. I was pregnant. I was ecstatic and overjoyed to tell my husband. However, I wanted to bring the news to him more elaborately, as this is dearly important to him. After checking in with my doctor due to the chances of me having a pregnancy complication and planning the surprise, it occurred to me that my husband's birthday was also coming up around this time. My sister, 26, and I, we've been good friends with my husband since we were children, have been tossing around ideas about his 30th birthday. My husband's family had never been big on birthdays, and we wanted to make the occasion spectacular for him, as due to complications in previous years, none of his birthday gifts in the past have been as perfect as I wanted them to be. I brought up the idea of announcing my pregnancy to my husband as a gift, as I realized I didn't have the time to pull together the plans we had previously agreed on. Still, I had already started arranging plans for announcing the baby. I thought it would be very special to him to combine the ideas of his birthday party and the baby announcement, as we've wanted a child for so long. And honestly, it seemed better than the gift we had previously had. However, my sister disagreed and told me I was selfish for wanting to make his birthday about me, and that I was a bad wife for not prioritizing the plans we had already agreed upon and changing them at the last minute. I argued that there was little time for us to make the elaborate plans anyway, and my husband would appreciate my idea just as much as a grand party. My sister told me by no means should I announce my pregnancy as a gift, and I would be the idiot if I did. Do not tell him in front of other people. It's rude to do so and put him on the spot like that. It doesn't allow him time to process and be genuine in how he feels. He will feel like he has to act a certain way because friends and family are around. So, yes, OP, you are the idiot if you do this. Make a special breakfast that morning and tell him, just the two of you. Congratulations, but you are the idiot. You say this is dearly important to him, so why haven't you told him? Your sister knew weeks before the baby's father? Stop trying to be elaborate. Stop withholding this important information because you want to make a splash. Tell him now. I struggled to hide it from my husband on the phone when he called to say he was on his way home from work after I found out. I cannot imagine hiding this news for weeks. I would assume he would want to enjoy telling his family and friends himself. It's well-intentioned, but yeah, I think you are the idiot here. My sister and her husband fell on hard times because of the global issue. They went from renting a nice house to having to rent a room from a friend. It was supposed to be temporary, but they've been in his house for an entire year, and he didn't have more than one room to spare to rent to them. I have a family of my own and my house is full, so I don't want them living with me. But I have a vintage camper trailer in my backyard, one of those small ones they call a canned ham type. It's had various repairs over the years, including redoing the floor and ceiling and getting a new axle, and it's in pretty decent condition for being over 50 years old. I take this camper on yearly trips with friends and on camping trips with my family. My sister, though, has asked to borrow the camper numerous times to put in her friend's backyard so her teenage son can have some privacy and use it as a private bedroom. But I know my nephew. He's destructive with everything and would turn my camper into a total mess. And I'm certain they wouldn't want to give it back whenever I need it because he'd already lived in it. So I know they can't simply go out and get their own camper because ones in usable condition are not cheap. And right now they're trying to save every extra dime to get back on their feet. Recently, my sister has gotten our parents involved, and they think I should lend them the camper, but I've still refused. They won't let up and seem to think if they keep hounding me as a collective, I'll give in, but I haven't. My wife is on my side and has refused to let my sister and brother-in-law in when I'm not home. They have a vehicle that can tow the camper, so I don't trust them not to take it if they can get into my backyard. My house also has cameras, and my sister and brother-in-law are aware of them now. They say I'm the idiot because I only use the camper a few times a year, and they need it now. But I worry that they wouldn't want to give it back, much less return it in the same condition. I firmly believe I'm in the right, but with my parents and sister constantly breathing down my neck, I thought I'd come here for an unbiased opinion. Am I the idiot for not lending them the camper? Info: I did suggest they get my nephew a tent, but they shot that idea down and called a tent temporary. If anything, that just felt like another red flag to me. Not the idiot. It is your property, and you're perfectly within your rights to use it as you see fit. If you know that your nephew is destructive, then why would you allow him unrestricted access to it? It's not your fault that his parents cannot provide for him. If your parents are concerned, then they can purchase a vehicle for them to use or stay in. This is why people go no contact. I think your reasoning is sound, and you don't want your goods destroyed, which this teenager might do. Be prepared to report the camper stolen and have your sister arrested for theft. I would warn her before going no contact that you'll be doing that. I married my husband 7 years ago. At the time, his sister was the only one with kids, and it was made clear to me that I was not an aunt, and I was made to feel like a stranger to sister-in-law's children by her own choice. She even taught her children that I'm not an aunt. So as a result of this, I'm not close to them like I am to my husband's other siblings' children, who are my nieces and nephews, and I'm their aunt. I believe I'm a fun and generous aunt, I spend time with my nieces and nephews. I've painted stuff in their rooms as gifts because I'm artsy. Sometimes I'll take them for fun little trips or buy them stuff. Even as a mom now, I like to do that because I love those kids, and I never had a family, so it's nice to have people who want me. I don't do any of this with sister-in-law's kids. I don't even try to speak to them anymore when I'm at the same place as them because sister-in-law has made such a big deal. It seemed like I was supposed to ignore them, so I wasn't going to start drama or cause trouble for them by interacting because I'm almost certain she told them not to talk to me. Now our kids are jealous and hurt that their cousins have cool paintings in their room or get to do XYZ, and they don't. She came to me, reamed me out about it, and told me I was an idiot for making her kids feel that way. I told her that was her fault, not mine, that she set the tone. She made it so I didn't relate to her kids, and thus her kids' hurt was her fault. I told her she reaped what she sowed, and her poor kids are the biggest victims of all. Of course she's angry, and now she's all like, see, she's a bad person, and this is why I didn't want my kids to think of her as their aunt. The rest of the family are just rolling their eyes, but I know this didn't help. I also know it doesn't fix anything with her kids, who I do feel bad for. Am I the idiot? I feel guilty about making things potentially worse in all of this. She doesn't consider me related to her kids because I'm not her or her husband's sister, aka no blood or adoption relationship. Not the idiot, and the family's rolling their eyes at this lady's BS. If anyone said anything, I would go over the malicious compliance. I'd never undermine the decision of another mother, and when I was asked to step back from being an auntie those 7 or so years ago, it hurt, but I listened. I'm sorry that things are this way, but I had to respect her as a parent. I didn't draw the lines. When she complained to OP should have said, I'm sorry, do I know you? But I wonder, if sister-in-law was the only daughter between the siblings, and OP being the first other woman of their generation to marry into the family, triggered her. As time passed and the other bros got married and had children, she became less aggressive, but the damage was already done. The only reason sister-in-law regrets it is that OP turned out to be a fabulous auntie to other children, and sister-in-law is mad her own plan worked too well. Actions meet consequences. OP, you followed her instructions not to be their aunt. It sounds like the rest of the family knows she's a moron too. Everybody here sucks. You probably aren't telling the whole story about what BS is going on between you and your sister-in-law, but it's awful of both of you to put the kids in the crossfire. And what about your husband? Does he ignore his niece and nephew as well? Why is he supporting either of you acting this way? I couldn't disagree more. The sister-in-law is the parent who made a choice to exclude OP and is now the one creating the crossfire because OP respected the boundaries sister-in-law put around your kids. Are you suggesting OP should have stomped on that boundary? I understand your empathy for her kids. Unfortunately, they get the short end of the stick because of their mom's behavior. But before you try to change anything with them, just first consider how your sister-in-law will respond. She may try to make any contact you have with them into something negative. Just know that as you decide what to do next. This happened 2 months ago, but he's still furious over it. I'm a 45-year-old female. I love my oldest son, but he's nearly an adult and acts like it. Our family rotates chores. Cooking, cleaning, dishes, and cleaning common areas are done by each family member on different days. Unfortunately, my son hates chores and always tries to half-idiot it to get out of doing it. It's been a constant battle. Dishes are the worst. He overpacks the dishwasher so the dish detergent can't get on the dishes. It just catches on whatever pan he shoved in first. He also doesn't rinse the dishes, so they come out dirty and caked in food. If we want to eat the day after he does dishes, we end up having to hand wash them. He doesn't care. Any attempt to talk to him is met with a little smirk, and he would say, "But the dishwasher sanitized it." He knows exactly what he's doing. The day after his night to do dishes, I went to cook dinner. All the dishes were in the washer still, filthy. I had worked all day and I was exhausted. I honestly teared up seeing this BS. I didn't have the energy to make dinner, let alone do an entire load of dishes first. So I quietly called hubby in, and he offered to hand wash the needed dishes. Light bulb moment. I told him yes, please, but only do enough dishes for preparing the food and serving everyone but teen son. So I made dinner and called the kiddos to eat. Son sat down and saw his setting was empty. He asked where his plate and silverware and water cup were. I pointed to the dishwasher and said, "Tonight you'll be eating off the dishes you did. Go pick them out." He went pale and started protesting that it was gross. I quickly cut him off and reminded him that the dishwasher sanitized them. Hubby backed me up. If he wants to eat tonight, he'll eat off his dishes. He huffed and said he'd wash some, and I said, "Nope. You had your chance to get them clean last night. Eat off them as they are or don't eat tonight." He yelled and said he'd make his food, but I said no. Eventually he relented, found the least disgusting dishes, and ate his dinner quietly. I felt bad. He looked so sick and disgusted, but I was sick of him wasting time and water and detergent. And it worked. His dishes came out spotless after, not a speck. But like I said, he's still furious. And I do feel bad now that it's over and done with. I'm just sick of the weaponized incompetence. He doesn't realize his laziness screws over everyone else in the house. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. And I think you handled this beautifully. However, I disagree with you on the following. He doesn't realize that his laziness screws over everyone else in the house. He knows. He doesn't care. He knows and doesn't care. OP, you probably should have done this long ago. If he doesn't experience consequences, he's not going to grow up and be less selfish. And he's at an age where this will not be typical or understandable behavior very soon. Agreed. The fact that OP and her husband have gotten into the habit of cleaning the dishes after their son failed to clean them properly means he was never learning his lesson. Instead, he learned that even when I do something wrong, my parents will have to fix my mistake because they have to eat as well. What OP did was brilliant because he's nearly an adult and it's time to learn how to do things correctly. The fact that he's somehow figured out how to do dishes correctly overnight shows he knows how to do them, but was being purposefully obtuse about it. Good job, OP. I grew up poor, but worked harder than anyone I knew to become financially, personally, and professionally successful. My family was so poor that picking between bus fare and a meal wasn't uncommon. So when I started making a lot of money, a lot of people started to come at me with their hands out. I helped them out of compassion and empathy. Someone giving something so small to someone who has nothing can make a difference. I know because I've been on the other side. Every person I helped tried turning me into a personal ATM. I never had that issue with people who had money. That'd be embarrassing to them. I do not spoil my kids, but yes, we live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood, etc. And I expect my kids to work and get good grades. My eldest son is a teen and got into trouble for telling a peer that he doesn't want to be his friend because he's poor. A teacher overheard and lost her crap. Unlike that dingbat dinosaur teacher, I got the context and facts before reacting. My son started to hang out with Austin. Austin would always complain that he had no money to do stuff, so my son would spot him. For example, a group went to see Top Gun, and Austin had no money, so my son paid for his movie ticket. Things started to get awkward when Austin started to expect my son to pay for his crap. The breaking point was when their friends went to IHOP, and Austin ordered a bunch of food. When they were figuring out who owed what on the bill, Austin casually said, "My son would pay for his meal too." My son just had onion rings, and this kid had a meal, dessert, and a milkshake. Later, my son complained to their friends about how I barely give him any money, and he has to work as a grade school tutor, only for Austin to pull these idiot moves on him. As a result, they all stopped talking to or associating with Austin. Flash forward a couple of weeks in class. Austin asked him why he's not being invited to do stuff. My son said because he's tired of paying for his crap. Austin said, "I'm poor." A teen's idea of poor has last year's iPhone. My son sarcastically said, "Well, then I don't want to be friends with poor people and get a job like him." This led to a call from the teacher. I explained the context of the conversation to the teacher because she wasn't listening to my son when he tried to explain it. She said my son was mean and would be assigned detention. I told her that I was going to tell my son he doesn't have to serve detention over this. And what was she going to do about it? She said nothing and dropped it. Edit. Austin is not impoverished and living under the freeway in a tent. He can get a job like my son and other kids at their school, but he chooses not to. Not the idiot. Go to the head teacher and explain how much your son has been emotionally blackmailed into handing over money, and that the last time that friend's actions were essentially theft. He ate something he couldn't pay for and had no consent to do so, and your son was forced to pay. Say school needs to teach pupils to stand up to emotional abuse, manipulation, and bullying, and your son has a right to stand up for himself and end the relationship, and that this teacher should have listened to the full story. Everyone's the idiot here. Your son probably deserves detention for having that outburst, and you shouldn't be interfering with the teacher's discipline unless something is really wrong with how she's handling things. I think you need to help your son work on his delivery, or else he'll be dealing with more than detention one day. I agree. There's nothing wrong with OP's son standing up for himself, but the wording was unkind. What would have been just as effective and more accurate would have been to say something like, I don't want to be friends with someone who takes advantage of me, because that's the problem, not that Austin's poor. For telling an entitled idiot to get bent and use his own money? Yeah, he's going to run into so much trouble. It wasn't a bad delivery, given the context. It was a sarcastic answer to someone using excuses for his bad behavior. The teacher didn't want to know what happened and took a poorly worded phrase out of context as enough to make a point. I know it sounds strange, and I don't think I'm the idiot, but I need other people's opinions on this. My spoiled high school dropout brother married his wife, same qualifications, this year. They're both 19. I'm 23, by the way. Long story short, my brother's hag of a mother-in-law wants a grandkid as soon as possible, so she manipulated them into getting married, and my stupid mother went along with it. My new sister-in-law is expecting now, so I'm pretty sure my theory's correct. No, I don't care that I'm being disrespectful. We're not well off, not at all. My father suddenly became a coward and didn't talk my brother and mother out of it. He talked me out of the college I wanted to attend, though, because of the tuition fees back in the day. To pay for the wedding, my father has gotten a loan from my uncle, his brother, and he now wants the money back. My parents set me down a few days ago and told me that they have no money to spare, too much debt to get a loan from an actual bank, and since my brother and sister-in-law are so young and expecting, they can't pay back my uncle either. That leaves only me. Apparently, because I don't have debt, no baby's coming anytime soon, but since I have savings and a job, I owe it to my family to take out a loan and hand it to my uncle. I didn't say a word, just laughed in their faces and left. I've been receiving a bunch of texts and calls from my family to save them financially, but I won't. I don't know. Either I live in a different reality or they do. No, it's not like a cultural thing or anything. So, am I the idiot for refusing to take out a loan for my family? Not the idiot. Dear Lord, this is a mess. If no one can afford to pay for this wedding, what will they do about the baby? Other than keep coming to you for loans they'll never pay back. Hold firm, this is not your problem to solve, and refuse to discuss it further. If you have to take out a substantial loan to throw a lavish wedding, you do not have the money for that type of wedding. So maybe, just maybe, any money they have should be going to this baby instead. Laughing in their faces is the correct response to such an absurd question. But OP, please tell me that you're the only person who has access to your savings, that it's locked down and they can't borrow or steal it from you. Update your passwords and don't stay logged into online banking on computers. Yes, please do this. Your parents indeed have or can quickly get your SSN, date of birth, past addresses, and employment history, which is probably all they'd need to open credit in your name. This was a crazy request from your parents, and even if you think they'd never actually steal from you, even if they believe that themselves, being broke and desperate can make people do strange things. Exactly. If they know your SSN, they can likely take out credit in your name, and then you'll be screwed because they won't pay it back, and you won't even know. Pretty sure it takes like 10 minutes. You call the big reporting agencies, I think it's 3 big ones, and they lock it, or go online. Easy process to reverse too once you're ready to use it to get a loan for a home, school, car, or whatever. Their financial stupidity is not your responsibility. They should work out a payment plan for your uncle on their own. I, 35 male, grew up with my best friend and his wife, Amanda. She was always a friend of mine, but I've always been closer to her husband. Unfortunately, they moved out of town years ago, and they've only come for funerals, weddings, and other family-related events. A few months ago, Amanda came to town to attend her sister-in-law's, my best friend's sister, bachelorette party. Her sister-in-law is a very nice and bubbly person, but she's always treated Amanda poorly, out of jealousy or something. I don't know. Amanda wasn't too thrilled about the trip, but she had to come because she was one of the bridesmaids. So I offered to pick her up from the airport and take her out for drinks afterward to help calm her nerves. Well, I was an idiot, and I forgot to add it to my calendar. I scheduled a date with this girl that night, and that morning, Amanda texted me and asked me if we were still on. I freaked out and apologized. I couldn't cancel the date because I had already paid for the show tickets. So I got the sister-in-law's best friend to pick up Amanda and bring her to the hotel. 2 days later, I took Amanda out for drinks. She was feeling very down because her sister-in-law mistreated her at the bachelorette party, and everyone else ignored her. I spent a few hours with her just drinking and chatting, and then I got a text from my girlfriend. She wanted me to come over to her apartment, so I got a mutual friend to come to the bar and keep Amanda company. Then I left. After that, Amanda stopped talking to me. She won't reply to my text or social media messages. It's been 3 months, and I finally asked my best friend about the deal with his wife. He gave me a litany of complaints Amanda had about me, like I forget her birthday all the time. She's not on Facebook, and I get B-Day reminders there. And the last straw was me forgetting to pick her up at the airport and ditching her at the bar. I told my friend that I'm very absent-minded, and they should have known that already. I said Amanda is overly sensitive, and she needs to stop holding grudges. I already apologized to her for everything. I don't know what more she wants. My best friend got angry, and now he's not talking to me too. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. So you ditched your friend twice, and now wonder why she's not talking to you? And you think she's too sensitive. You made plans with her, and then dropped her twice to do something you'd rather be doing. You showed her by your actions that you don't value her as a friend. I would stop talking to you too. You treated Amanda poorly multiple times, and she's finally had enough. You don't get to mistreat people and expect them to get over it. It's a major red flag that your first instinct isn't to apologize to Amanda, but to say she's the problem. You messed up again and again, not her. Sorry, but dude, you are the idiot. You're making excuses. You grew up with them, so that's years. Her birthday is the same day every year, and you have a phone, right? Or a calendar. All of those can be used to mark her birthday. You ditched her twice in one trip while she was feeling down. Really? You don't see something wrong with that? Especially after you forgot her at the airport. Man, that's horrible.